Creepypasta I'm going to be reading is called Barbie.AVI, but before I get into it, I do want to say a few things. First off, the video is one take, so if you hear me stumble, mumble, fumble, and mess up my words, I'm sorry, this is a one take. And second thing, I do want to say, please consider using code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. It's code GOONS, and you can use that to get 10% off at checkout. Okay, so outside that, let's get into it. This is Barbie.AVI. Hello. This happened to me a few months ago, and I just need to share it with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in the industrial part of town. If you can picture what a place like that in Detroit looked like, if you can picture what a place like Detroit looked like in the 1920s, that's what this area looks like. A bunch of old turn-of-the-century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them are abandoned. So I partied a little too hard that night and decided to crash on a couch in the loft. I woke up around 4 a.m. and the sun wasn't out yet, but you can still make things out in a dim blue light. I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoeing around the people that were passed out on the floor as I was taking a piss. As I was taking a piss, I looked out the bathroom window and saw a panorama of a deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was just so dark and devoid of life, and strangely serene. I went back to the couch and I tried to fall asleep, but after 45 minutes of staring at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer, so I swallowed my pride and decided to wake up my girlfriend and beg her for a ride. Since walking around the vacant streets at this time was not an option, being an awesome girlfriend, she was totally cool with it. She told me that she would be there in about half an hour, and that she'd give me a call when she was outside. My phone died 10 minutes later, so I decided I would sit by the window and watch for her car. I sat there for a while, and eventually my eyes started to get heavy, and I began to doze off. A crashing noise outside woke me up. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to snap me back into reality. I looked out the window and I scanned the area, but I didn't see anything. However, across the street from the loft, near a mountain of garbage bags and one of those enormous dumpsters, I did see a computer and the monitor smash against the floor that hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs and greeted her. Just as I was about to get in her car, I remembered a friend of mine who'd blown out his power supply. So I decided to walk over to the dumpster and see what I could salvage. The monitor itself was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage, so I put it in the trunk and we drove off. About a week had passed since then, and I completely forgotten about the tower, until my girlfriend called to let me know that it was still in the trunk, and she wanted it out. That night, I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still worked, and to my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP and looked like it has been wiped clean. I decided to do searches for words like tits and pussies and hope to find some secret cache full of weird deviant porn the previous owner had forgotten about. Morbid curiosity, I guess, but my search came up with nothing. There were no picture files at all. Then I searched for movies and one came up. It was a .avi, and inside that folder it was titled Barbie. It was hidden in the Windows/System32 directory. So I played it, and this is where it gets disturbing. The movie was about an hour long and was made up of what seemed like raw exported footage. The footage was of this woman sitting on a chair and talking against a white backdrop. I skipped through most of the movie, and it was all the same continuous shot. I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was talking about, and 15 seconds into it, the audio became extremely bad. Her voice was drowned out in harsh static or the background noise. I couldn't make out a thing. I imported the footage into a Final Cut, and I tried to mess with the levels to isolate her voice. It helped a little, but I still couldn't hear what she was saying. I was intrigued now, and I began to really pay attention to her face and her body language. It seemed that she was being asked questions because she stopped at times to listen and then continued talking. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face began to redden and contort, as if the questions were bothering her, but she continued to answer them anyway, and shortly after, she started to cry. She sobbed hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the few words I could lip read was skin. She repeated this word many, many times throughout the footage, and even at one point, she even pulled at the skin from her arm and mouthed the word. She seemed to be unhappy with it. It kept on building and building, and about 40 minutes in, she was trying so hard she could barely look at the camera. She stopped talking at this point, and the rest of the footage was just her crying with her head down. Oddly enough, she didn't get up or move. The screen just faded into black. I was fucking dumbfounded. I played the whole thing multiple times throughout that night, trying to find the inflections and nuances in her movement that would reveal anything else about what was going on. I felt so dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. And that's when I noticed that there were about 10 more minutes left on the timeline after the screen went black. 2 minutes past the darkness, there was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky and almost unwatchable, and depicted a pair of legs walking through the train tracks. My guess is that the camera was accidentally left on as if it was being carried somewhere else. The person in the video walked along the train tracks for about 6 minutes, then turned into the forest and walked over to what looked like foliage flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continued on this makeshift plywood road until the clip ended. My heart started to beat with excitement because there were train tracks a few miles away that looked very similar to the one in the video. I had to check this out. I called up my friend Ezra, and he's 6'4" and 250 pounds of mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me, but I'm not a pushover myself, but I felt like if I was going to go wandering into the woods looking for God knows what, some extra muscle couldn't hurt. The whole idea of investigating this video had me so excited that I couldn't sleep. The next morning, or on a sunny Saturday, I decided to take my flashlight, camera, a 7-inch Kabar knife with a matte black finish and a serrated edge, and I went to go pick up my friend Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake, and when I woke him up, he pretty much told me to go fuck myself and go fuck off. I was already packed, and I had mentally prepared myself to do this alone, so I decided to go through with it without him. I parked my car at the train station. I took my stuff and I hopped onto the tracks. After walking for about 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood, and my knees almost buckled with excitement. I searched the nearby foliage, and there it was, a little plywood trail leading off into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally to kneel down and listen for anything or anyone, but it was just so quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things I have ever done in my life. I didn't know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way to a little island of grassy field, and then I saw it. A house being consumed by the forest, and from the look of it, no one had lived there for 20, maybe 30 years. I got my camera and snapped a few pics. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed made of rusty sheet metal. I sat there among the trees for a while, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into the open field. I had a bad feeling that something would see me. It took me a while to muster the courage to go up to the house. The door was partially open, and I pushed it in with a flashlight, and was relieved that the inside was actually very well lit. I put the flashlight away and got my camera, and I took a few more pics. There was no furniture, and the floor was riddled with bricks, wood, and other rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went in further to explore, I saw some things that I didn't pay much mind to in the moment, but now that I think of them in hindsight, they greatly disturbed me. The first thing that seemed a little odd was one of the doors in the first room that I presumed led to the basement seemed a little too new to be in the house. It was also the only door that was locked. Also, when I made my way up to the second floor, I saw some chairs and a fold-up table that also seemed to be a little bit too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most was the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathtub, I saw a clear plastic tarp that still had water droplets on it from when I presume it was last washed or cleaned. That was when I heard something moan really loud. I jumped the fuck out of the second story window and I ran back to the tracks. Halfway there, I realized that the moaning was most likely a water pipe expanding or contracting. That little moment of relief gave way to horror when I wondered why the water would be running in an abandoned house in the middle of the fucking woods. It has been a little bit more than 2 months since this has all happened, and I haven't gone back there, nor do I ever plan to again. Okay, so yeah, that was Barbie.AVI, and also there is videos of Barbie talking. I'm assuming, or the woman that was talking. They are 9 minutes long. So maybe I'll link them into the description of the video so you guys can watch that yourself. But yeah, that was Barbie.AVI. It wasn't really that scary, but for what it is, I enjoyed it. So hopefully I'll enjoy this creepypasta. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys want to see more, please leave a like and consider subscribing. You'll see some stuff pop up on the screen right now. You'll see a playlist. Click that. You'll get to see all my creepypasta videos. And yeah. Use code GREENS at gamerstops.gg. Leave a like and consider subscribing. It is free and it helps out the channel and all that good stuff. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys later. Bye everyone.